All right, here we go again. We're going to introduce you to the quadratic formula, and it's a ton of fun. We do have a little warm up today. I'm going to make sure you get a couple of things together, review some of those. We talked about intercepts, x-intercepts, some of those things going on. So remember, if we're going to do that, we're going to say 4x equals negative 12, so x is negative 3. When we divide, negative 3y equals negative 12 divided by negative 3. So y is 4, so that would be 0 with 4 over here. This is negative 3 with 0, as we try and find those intercepts. Right? Always paired up with zeros. That'll happen all the time. Cool little review. Alright, there's a little website down here. If you click on that one, I don't know why it's not loading up here. I think I need to refresh, but either way, for the sake of this, is for you to explore and just see all the things that the quadratic formula is used for, whether you like it or not. It turns out it has a lot to do with your cell phone. Battery inside has a lot to do with logarithms, natural logs. So all those things we can thank the quadratic formula for. So here it is, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Yeah, I said that quick, because I've said it a lot. That's how you memorize it. So take a minute, pause there, and go check out that website. Alright, here's a little song for you. If you go through and check it out, again, checking on here, this is kind of the, I think it's the childish one. It's Pop Goes a Weasel, the quadratic formula, but it will get it memorized for you, no doubt about it. A little bit stuck in your head, but either which way, we do want to try and memorize that. It is helpful instead of having to look it up all the time. That makes it a little bit faster. Alright, so once you have it memorized, here are some things that we want to do with it. Is we're going to use negative b, so I'm going to use positive 7 plus or minus the square root of, this part here I think you should always fill it in, b squared, so negative 7 times negative 7 is 49. This part here I think we should always fill in the way it says, minus 4, a is 1, and c is negative 60. It's all over 2 times 1. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check and see how many negative signs I have. I've got 2 of them, and you guys know that 2 negatives make up a positive. So I'm going to rewrite everything I have, 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 plus, I'm going to put this part together first. So 4 times 6 is 24, so this is 240. And it's all over 2. This part we can definitely put together. So that means we're going to add this whole thing up. We're going to get 7 plus or minus the square root of 289, and it's over 2. We're going to try and find out if this is perfect or decimal or what it is. It turns out it's 17. So 7 plus or minus 17 over 2. Now we have to work through these two cases. So we're going to split this guy up. The first one, we're going to do 7 plus 17 over 2. And then we're going to do 7 minus 17 over 2. So this is negative 10 over 2. So it's negative 5. That's one of my answers. We go back to blue here. This is 24 over 2. So 12 is my other answer. We're dealing with quadratic. We'd like to get 2 answers unless we find out that there's a non-real one. So that's what we're going to get. Alright, the next problem we have is going to be very, very similar, but if I look at my notes ahead here, the only thing that's going to be different is this number right here is not going to be perfect. So we're going to turn 17 into a decimal and just work through the same cases. Alright, so it looks very, very not intimidating at all, which is good. Right? So we got negative b, so we're going to go positive 1 plus or minus. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1 minus 4. A is 1 out here, and C is negative 1. It's all over 2 times 1. So 1 plus or minus, we got 4. Remember what we're going to do now. How many negative signs? 2. So if you have 2 negative signs, it becomes plus. Oh my goodness, why did I put a 4 there? Thinking ahead, huh? Alright, let's fix that. So that should be 1 plus, here's my 4, and it's all over 2. So I got 1 plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2. Well, the square root of 5, that's not very nice, but we're going to work with it and see what happens here. Let me see here. That means it's 2.2. We get 2 plus or minus 2.2 over 2. So we're going to split it up. I get 2 plus 2.2 over 2 and 2 minus 2.2 over 2. It's a lot of 2's, but I think we'll be okay. Alright, so 2 plus 2.2, that's 4.2 over 2. So we're going to get 2.1. And over here, 2 minus 2.2, that's negative 0.2 over 2. So it's negative 0.1 as the final answer. Okay, that's a quadratic formula. That's how it works. Why are we using it? Because 1 times 1, we don't have factors of 1 that subtract to give me 1. We have factors of 1 and 1 give me 0 or 2, and in this case 0 because I have to subtract them. Okay. Now this will work all the time, but as you can see it takes a little extra time for things that we probably could do a little bit faster some other way. Alright, so curveball, right? Things have to change at some point. Notice it's not equal to 0 anymore, so we're just going to add 6x over. And then on top of that, this isn't even quadratic anymore, it's cubic. So that means I must have put inside of here, some way, shape, or form, a GCF of at least x. So they all have an x, so we're going to take that out. While we're doing that, 4, 16, and 6 are all divisible by 2. So let's take out 2x. So we have 2x squared minus 8x plus 3 equals 0. So first things first, let's get rid of this one here and get a solution. Okay, so that means we're going to get x is 0. Love that one. That's super duper. Excuse me then. Alright, next one we're going to start our quadratic formula. 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 times negative 8, 64. Okay, so these parts we got to make sure we get that taken care of. Minus 4, A is 2, and C is 3 now. See how bringing these numbers down, this makes it a little bit easier because there's a bit of work involved here anyway. And it's all over 2 times 2. Alright, so we're going to have something other than 2 this time. So this is a pretty good example. I don't say so myself. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so we got 8 plus or minus 64. What do? We're going to check. We got one negative sign, so this is going to stay negative. Minus, what do we got? 6 times 4 is 24. It's all over 4. We have 8 plus or minus. We're going to simplify what's under here. We got 40 over 4. And we're just going to find out what decimal that gives us. Remember, 36 would be 6, 49 would be 7. So we're somewhere in between there. 8 plus or minus. We got 6.3 all over 4. Let's go through 2 cases. 8 plus 6.3 over 4. That gives me 14.3 over 4. And based on my calculation here, it's going to be 3.6. Alright, let's pick a different color here just so you can see these. 8 minus 6.3 over 4. That's going to give us 1.7. Still have to divide it by 4. And rounding, we're going to get 0.4. Alright, so that's the quadratic formula. The only thing we can do to make it a little more difficult is put a GCF on top of it. But honestly, we always want to look for it, because even if I didn't have the x, bringing all these numbers down makes the calculation just a little bit easier. And that's what we want. We want it to be a little bit easier each and every time. Alright, so fill in your letters. Where does A, B, and C go? Into your quadratic formula. Okay, so you might be thinking about Pop Goes the Weasel, or however else you memorize the quadratic formula. Just plug them right in here. Right? What goes in? If you have it memorized, great. If not, it might slow you down just a little bit. Alright, other than that, if you want to add some drawings on here, I found this. I thought this was awesome. Right, A is greater than 0. Look what we got. A happy little parabola. Okay, and if you got A is less than 0, you got that negative face there. Okay, and here's my advice. Stay greater than 0. Get it? Alright.